Hey, it's Logan Gill. So if you struggle with anger and frustration with dealing with people, I want to share a story, and maybe you can relate, because I do that sometimes. Okay, a lot. I do it a lot. All right. So years ago, I was still a full-time fireman, and I was still pretty young. I don't know, I was probably somewhere around 21, 22 years old. And I decided that I wanted to become a flight medic, flight nurse. And so I was working with all these guys and ladies that were just incredible medics. You know, we would life flight patients out or whatever, and they just, man, they were like just incredible people to work with, and really made me like, man, I want to try that. I want to do that. So I had to go back to school. Well, I had gone straight from high school to the fire department. Right as soon as I turned 18, my senior year, I graduated early and went straight to work. And so I thought, well, okay, I'll go back to school. So I found a community college nearby, sign up. I had a remedial math class, because math, and I started with like English 101, like basic college English. And so I'm doing those classes and was actually doing pretty well. I felt, I was picking up a rhythm. Every other week I was having to take off from work, burning PTO from shift to go make the class in the afternoons, and then drive back and finish out my shift. We did 24 hours on and 48 off. And so anyways, all was well. I was doing pretty well with my writing. I was still pretty wild. I was still drinking a lot, just kind of running around, not really, pretty aimless, other than my work. Like my work was my identity, which that's a whole nother conversation that we'll have another day. If that's you, please stick around, because I have learned some hard lessons in living that life, and I don't want anyone to do that longer than they need to or are doing. So anyways, this story, I'll speed it up. So getting to do my final, or one of my final papers for English, and it's a 15-page paper. I can't remember. It was like a cause and effect type paper. I may even probably pick the topic. Professor was, so this guy, he was your typical English professor, I guess. And in my mind, this is, I picture this guy, with the tweed jacket and the leather briefcase, or satchel bag, like a messenger bag. And just the way he talked and carried himself was very academic, very highly academic. Incredibly smart guy, I'm sure. Like, his whole goal when we introed the class was to be published in some literature magazine. Great for him. I throw no rocks at that. Just not my experience working in the fire department in the South. I wasn't used to that. So I do the paper, I get a D. To that point, I've had A's and B's, had a really great experience with this professor, honestly. We got along well. Most of his students were, right out of high school. There were a few of us that, there was a lady, I remember her very well. She was in her 60s, had just got laid off her job, and was just like, I want to be a teacher. And so she was shifting from working at a Nissan plant to becoming a teacher. Great for her. So there was a couple of us that were slightly older, back to school. Well, I go up front And I'm like, a D? Really? Like, what? What's the deal? And his comment to me was on the paper that I had strayed from the topic and not been concise enough. It's a 15-page paper. Like, come on. English 101, 15 pages. I could have probably written that in 5, especially now in my experience. I went back to school after all of this, but ultimately I was stretching it, had to fill 15 pages. That's a lot. So, needless to say, back to what I was saying, back on topic. I go up to the front of the class and I'm asking him, I can't remember his name, wouldn't share it anyways, I guess. Hey, Mr. So-and-so, a D, really? Like, staying on topic? Like, it's 15 pages. What do you want me to do? Like, why all this pressure to stay on topic? Which I would argue it was on topic. It just wasn't really proving a point over 15 pages. It was a lot of points, and then I wrapped it up. His comment was, I'm trying to prepare you for the real world. Here's where the rub was. I'm in uniform. I had taken PTO from my shift to go to class. I think it was like near the end of the class, the semester. I burn my time, I go. We had just had a car fire on the interstate where a single mother had her baby, maybe 2 years old, and I say baby, young toddler. They're traveling across country to move closer to family because she needed help. And the car catches fire. It burns completely down. By the time we got there, traffic was horrendous. By the time we got to the car, they got out safely, but everything she owned was in that car. Everything the baby needed, food, diapers, everything burned, gone. And I still smelled like smoke. I didn't have time to take a shower to go to class. I literally straightened up my uniform and went to class. The anger that welled up inside of me at this guy. Like, who are you, bro? Like, you don't know what life is, what real life. Like, I'm trying to prepare you for real life with this paper in your freshman college, community college class. In my mind, immediately, I think, you wouldn't know what real life was if it slapped you across the face. Like, you're living in this world, dude, that is completely in a weird bubble of daydreams, something. I was so angry. Here's why I share the story. What ended up happening, through gritted teeth, I asked permission to rewrite the paper. He lets me do it, says, I'll let you do it, but the best you'll get is a C if you do these things. And that way I could maintain I believe it was probably a B average for the final grade. Sure, okay. Bump a letter grade. Grand scheme of things, really doesn't matter. Didn't matter at all. But my anger, back then, really rage, which I still have, but it's a little bit more contained and controlled for the most part. It caused me in that moment, I questioned everything. I finished the class, I finished the remedial math class, and I dropped out. It's like, I'm done, I'm not signing up for another semester. I'm gonna stay in real life. Years later, 26, 27 years old. So 5-ish years later, you get married, grown up a little bit, matured a little bit. I get to a point where I decide I actually do want to go back to school, get an undergraduate degree. Had a lot of doors that were closing on me. My ability to promote within the fire service or move to another department where there was more room to grow was pretty limited. I even got passed up for a part-time job working at the state fire academy. I was teaching as a fire instructor for the state as like a part-time instructor, and I wanted to go full-time at the academy. And I got passed up, made top 2, but got passed up because the guy who got the job had a computer science degree. And computer science, he'd been a volunteer fireman for a little bit. I had already been a fireman since I was 16 when I started, shortly after 9/11. But they had gotten a new driving simulator and required a lot of computer skill and knowledge, which it did. But he got the job as a full-time instructor, and I got passed up because I didn't have a degree. I said, a degree in what? Didn't matter. Don't have a degree. So I let my anger, my rage, pull me out of school, and ultimately my immaturity. What really showed up here, here's some of the lessons for you that I've processed over time and trying to pin down. Why does this matter? One, I needed to just humble myself. Humble myself and realize what this professor was actually trying to communicate to me and teach me. And honestly, start to understand what is the world of college and what does that actually require, but just to learn the lessons instead of to flare up my ego and allow it to remove me from that altogether, because I'm too good for that. I'm a real man. You have no idea what you're talking about. I'm out of here. I guess he probably got published in his magazine someday. I don't know. I hope he did, truly. I know that it truly was a big goal of his, so good on him if he did. No sweat off his back. But I allowed that to control my mental state and affect my decisions beyond the vision I had for my life at the time. That was bigger than the vision I had of becoming a flight medic and eventually a flight nurse. I'm glad I waited to go back to school. Ultimately, it worked out. The good Lord directed my path on that, and honestly, I probably gave a whole lot more effort a little later in life with some maturity than I would have done through the rest of that particular stint in college. And so here's what I would maybe challenge you with. If you struggle with anger, check your ego. Step back a little bit from the situation and ask yourself, okay, what's in this? What lesson's here for me? Even if they're dead wrong. That dude, what he was saying, dead wrong. Or at least didn't understand what real life in my head meant. Maybe get in an argument with a spouse, family, professor, whatever. I don't care. Even if they're wrong, there's something in it for you. And if you allow your anger and the rage inside of you to distract you from your vision and derail you from the path that you set yourself on, that you wanted to do, you will wander in the wilderness a lot longer than you have to. Because I did. That's what happened to me. I'm not saying be a rug for people to walk all over you and eat crow every time and tell them how right they are. I'm not saying any of that. Maybe you need to stand up and set the boundary or uphold the boundary, depending on your situation. But don't let it derail your life because you're angry and you hit somebody or you kill somebody and you end up in jail, or you end up, I saw it a lot, where someone would allow an addiction, and I have my own addictions. I'm not, if that's your world, you're still in that. One, know that you can reach out. I'm going to pray for you. I mean that. But I've seen people who get angry and go drink and they get on the road, and then we get the call and have to cut those people out of a car because you just killed a family. Or a dad on his way home to his wife and his kids. Or you ruin your own self. End up in a wheelchair and your vision and goal was to do something in the Olympics or whatever, sports, be a fireman, whatever, a mountain guide. Lots of fun, by the way. I'm just saying, check your ego. Don't let it derail you. There is a lesson in it, but you got to step back and examine it. Okay? Let's not overthink it. If you're watching this and you've got some anger boiling inside of you, you got a situation you need to handle, or you handled poorly. Maybe now that you're sitting back and it's cooled off, you're starting to realize you've handled that really poorly. Said some things you shouldn't have said. Did some things you shouldn't have done. When you click off this, turn your phone off. Turn it off. Process what you need to process. Reach out to someone who loves you. Someone you can trust, who's safe. And go handle it. Quit scrolling and go handle it. You're loved. You are loved. See you soon.